it's not a solitary life we live. It's Scripture speaks nothing about solitary Christianity. As a matter of fact, the very first scene in the Scripture is of after creation of Adam, that God says it's not good for you to be alone. And so Eve is created, and Adam and Eve develop a relationship. And then they have a relationship with God, and that's really what this whole world is about. It's about relationships. It's a relationship with others, a relationship with Jesus. So it's not a solitary life we live. So we walk along this road in life, and sometimes we may feel alone, and we look for someone to help us along the way. And as we find ourselves with friends and walking along the path with friends, we're all in different points on the path. We're at different points in the depth of our relationship with Jesus. We're at different points, levels of understanding of Scripture, and even levels of understanding of life itself. And the real key question that we ask someone is, we're walking along a path and it's kind of dark and weary and can't see, we say, have you passed this way? Have you passed this way? And they will say yes, and then the question is, what lies ahead? Can you tell me where I am now, even, by looking at me? And that's been a mentor. And most of all, I can remember my father and my mother. And my father taught me what it was, what a day's work meant. He never did tell me about it. But he'd get me up and didn't say you got to get up. He'd just get me up. And we'd go to the farm, and I'd get on that tractor, and the sun would be coming up, and he'd say, it's going to be a great day. And then I asked him when I could come in from work for lunch, and he said, you'll know. And when can I come in from dinner, from at the end of the day? He said, well, when the sun goes down. So he mentored me by he didn't ever tell me you got to work from sun up to sundown. And so my mother, and I remember my mother as we grew up, and she took me to church. We'd come home and we'd talk about the Scripture, and she'd talk about individuals. Never heard her talk anything negative about anybody. Mother had a tough time. She was a teacher and a cook and raising two rascalous kids, and it was just, and then you have your grandkids. I'm getting a second chance to be a mentor to them. So not only do we have mentors among our friends and those who have passed this way, and we need sometimes, but we have our grandkids for us now. The Israelites were told that to tell your children what the Lord has done for you. All of us ought to be able to do that. That's the key point in mentoring, is being able to tell your children what the Lord has done to you. It's more powerful than any lesson that you might try to teach them. I'm riding in the car with Scarlett. Scarlett's my 6-year-old granddaughter. And she's staring out the window. I always watch them in the mirror. She's staring out the window. And she says, Granddad, yes, Scarlett says, why did you get old? And I said, and I smiled, and I said, by the grace of God, so I could be here with you. And she said, oh. Now one of these days, she'll probably remember that and understand that our life is a walk with not only with each other, but with God. There's not a formula that I'm aware of for mentoring. And so I tried to remember what these people did that mentored me, and I couldn't even do that. And so then I had to, it dawned on me. I knew who they were and what they were. And I could quote them. But I couldn't write down in a formula what they did. And these were all perspectives from the present. They were not necessarily perspective that I had at that time. And they all had a thirst for the Word and a relationship with Jesus. Now that's the present perspective. It was not one I had then. It was not something I said, this guy's got a thirst for the Word and he loves Jesus and he walked. I just remember this minister, Delma Cook, he taught me some of the basic things about teaching. He did it by handing me books to read, by drinking coffee with me as we visited about teaching, and then asking me to teach a college class, and gave me some books about the college class. And then I also saw him in a sermon one time, and as tears rolled up in his eyes, talking about a big eagle flying in to feed these starving little eaglets and dropping food in their mouth, and talking about how they had a relationship with that eagle, and that eagle had a relationship with them, and then they had a relationship with each other, and talked about Jesus and the power that he feeds us daily. And even when he's not there, he's off hunting. He's going to be present pretty soon. And so, thirst for the Word and relationship with Jesus. Then I thought about others, and they sincerely cared for me. They sincerely cared for me and my well-being. And I didn't realize at the time he did, but many times he'd share with me some points, this person and others, about how they cared for me. Then the other thing I remember about all those people, they had time. They had time. And I look back on it, and they didn't really have the time, but they had time for me. And they took time. And the other thing I noticed, that they always listened patiently and intently with me when they were talking. I always thought they were focused completely on me at that time. And finally, they posed these really probing questions, causing me to think and to believe. And now I realize they also helped me accountable. I look back and remember several of them giving me little assignments to go read a scripture, to go do that. And so I held accountable, but it was, not a way that I was aware of that they were testing me out, but they held me accountable. So I remember more of who they were and what they were than I do about what they really did. I can't tell you. And so we find our mentors wherever we're walking along in life. We become a mentor to those that we're walking with. The counselor's task, the mentor's task, was to put himself out of business. You should never make yourself necessary to anybody. The addiction to a counselor is just as bad as the addiction to drugs, and that you needed to be free again. And I remember that's what we are as parents too. Our job is to mentor and counsel these individuals in such a way that we put ourselves out of business. They begin to live with their relationship with Jesus, which powers them, and their relationship with others. What are the rewards of all this? Joy. Recently, we're in a situation, and Kathy said to me, she said, at the end of a very moving presentation by someone I've been with, have known for many, many years, said, "That's your boy." I knew what she meant. But at the same time, he didn't look like me. He didn't act like me. He didn't think like me. He even did things differently than I did them. But he was my boy. And the joy was that a mentor or a counselor, we never are to make these people be images of ourselves, but to make them be like Jesus. And so in summing up, I would have to say, as I looked to the past and to the years that I've been mentored and mentored others, that a mentor is a friend walking quietly beside you on a dark path, familiar to him, and with a lantern in his hand.